Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm Ai Hui and I'll be your moderator for this session. In this session, we hope to bring awareness about the issue of waste management and introduce to you current or upcoming solutions available in the market. Why is this issue important? The world is generating more waste and it is contaminating the land and polluting the seas. In 2016, the world's cities generated 2 billion tons of solid waste, amounting to a footprint of about 1 kilogram per person per day. With rapid population growth and urbanization, annual waste generation is expected to increase by 70% from 2016 levels to 3.4 billion tons in 2050. In Malaysia, waste management is acknowledged as one of its biggest challenges. Last year, Housing and Local Government Minister was quoted as saying that the country generated 38,000 tons of waste on a daily basis. Of that amount, only 24% is separated and recycled. 76% goes to the landfill. Based on the data from 2015, Malaysia's recycling rate was barely 17.5%, far from our national strategic plan for solid waste management vision for a zero waste country by 2020. A 2019 study commissioned by the Worldwide Fund for Nature showed that Malaysia ranks second in Asia for annual per capita plastic use. At around 17 kilograms per person, Malaysians outrank much larger nations, including China, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam in overall generated waste. This session will consist of a brief presentation from each speaker about waste management technologies, which will allow for efficient and sustainable waste management practices to be implemented in developments. The presentation will consider the practicality of introducing the technologies in Malaysia with examples and case studies from other Asian nations. We are privileged to have with us today a panel of speakers from Malaysian Youth Delegation. Allow me to give a brief introduction to MYD before I move on to our panel speakers. Established in 2015, Malaysian Youth Delegation is the only youth-led organization in Malaysia which focuses on climate change policy and negotiations. MYD provides a platform for youths to explore the world of climate agreements at the United Nations platform and strives to educate the public on climate change policy by organizing trainings and talks. MYD regularly engages with the ministry and government agencies that have purview over climate change issues. For the first speaker of our session, we have Lucy, a communication assistant in WWF Malaysia's Education for Sustainable Development team. She is also a marine conservation enthusiast, which drove her to join Sustainable Ocean Alliance as a youth ocean leader and on-board member of Youth Policy Advisory Council to develop a policy paper named Blue New Deal with the other members across the globe. In regional engagement, she has been a scientific advisor in the ATO Climate Educate project. She has been focusing on developing a climate change science online learning platform with the team for several months now. After Lucy, we have Miss Jasrina. She is an environmental scientist with international experience of working within the waste management industry. She currently leads the waste management team within her company and project manages numerous development projects around Australia. She advises on best practice waste management methods within developments and is on a constant mission to ensure her clients implement sustainable waste management strategies with minimal carbon footprint, which would yield the best outcome for both the environment and the community. Next, we would hear from Josephine. She is a first-year undergrad at London School of Economics and Political Science. After delegating in various model United Nations conferences, she became interested in environmental policy and decided to become more involved in this issue. She is also currently pursuing a zero-waste lifestyle. Hence, the issue of waste management is one that is close to her heart. Our last presenter of the session would be Ms. Robiato. She is currently pursuing her undergraduate studies in Bachelor of Law at the National University of Malaysia. Robiato has a great dedication towards advocacy and chooses debate as a medium to deliver her thoughts and opinions to the public. She is always at the forefront in representing her university for debate and mooting competitions. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I will step back and let the speakers share with you their ideas. Lucy, the floor is all yours.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy from Malaysia Youth Delegation. Today I'm going to speak about waste collection in Malaysia. So, why waste separation as source and why is it important? We all know that Malaysia has adequate number of recycling plants out there to process our recyclable waste. But why are we still seeing news of those companies importing waste from all across the world? This is particularly plastic waste. This is because the recyclable resources that collected in the country are not enough for them to run the recycling plant at maximum capacity. Hence, it is important for the locals to separate their waste, to provide the resources to these recycling companies so that they could run their business with local resources. With that, we could also reduce the amount of waste going into the landfill from our site. And by separating waste at source, it eventually ease the process of recycling and significantly increase the recycling rate in the later process. In fact, it also enables specific category of waste to be managed accordingly. For example, fabric waste, e-waste, which do not need to end up into the landfill, which could worsen the pollution condition in the area. In addition, before we put everything else into the landfill, we could also reconsider the value of the waste and eventually increase the lifespan if we could value it as an alternative for raw material in product design. And by doing it on the ground, the public could also um, learn to value waste as an energy source, economical income, and also arts inspiration rather than just the refuse from their house. So, as complicated as it might sound, there are six major categories of waste that we can separate into to ease the waste collectors later to ease the process of waste collection. The first type is of course papers. In papers we have cardboard, newspapers, nip cutters, books, um, receipts, bills, brochures, and etc. The second type is plastic waste. So we all know that there are seven kind of plastic on the market, which is labeled from 1 to 7. Only type 1, 2, and 5 are recyclable, and most of the single-use plastic items like plastic straws, bags, chopsticks, utensils, tissues, pen, pizza boxes are not recyclable. Hence, as it is not advisable to put all these items into the recyclable bins, which could mess up the recycling process later. The other recyclables that are also advisable to separate them out are glass, aluminum, tin, metal, and iron, and also electronic waste, fabric waste, including shoes, leathers, and rubber. And last but not least, the toxic waste such as the spray can, which could heavily pollute the landfill if it is not properly managed. So the fourth type is the garden waste, and then the bulk waste, which are the large furniture from our house, for example, mattress, fridge, and sofa. Um, and lastly, of course, is the organic waste, which do not need to end up in the landfill either, which includes the food waste or the kitchen waste from our house. So, as you may or may not know about this. So this is the hashtag ASEAN waste separation campaign introduced by the Malaysian government and has made it mandatory for the consumers to separate waste at source under the Solid Waste and Public Cleansing Management Act 2007. It is a joint effort of KPKP, JPSPN, SW Corp, Alam Fora, and Senviro. These three are the appointed waste collectors around the country. Alam Fora runs around Putrajaya, Pahang, and Kuala Lumpur. As for SW Corp, it runs KL, Putrajaya, Johor, Malacca, Negeri Sembilan, Pahang, Kedah, and Perlis. Senviro in Kedah, Perlis, and Perak. So this for these three company actually run the same waste collection waste separation collects the same waste separation um, categories as I mentioned earlier in this slide. So they have appointed different days for recyclable and also non-recyclables. Basically, it's 2 times a week for non-recyclable and 1 time a week for recyclable. The consumers are advised to check the local schedule out on their website, or you can just call them on the number given. Yeah. So the image on the left hand side are the four major ways that is that could be easily separated out from our home, which is also the similar category that I have mentioned earlier. So moving on into the examples of the waste collection and also recycling alternatives on specific waste, today we are only going to look at three types of waste, which is fabric waste, electronic waste, and UHT beverage packaging. Of course, there are more of the small companies, different companies running on the similar business, but today I'm just going to talk about these three services available on the market that the consumers can separate the source and send it to this company at their convenience. For crop care, they focus on fabric waste collection and recycling. They have over 280 crop care bins installed in Selangor, KL, Malacca, and Negeri Sembilan. So the consumer can put in their unwanted garments, clothing accessories, household textiles, any worn or used footwear, shoes, children toys, and fabric remnants into their collection bins. As for ERKH, they focus on e-waste collection and recycling, which is a company in Cyberjaya. They offer free pickup coverage around Cranberry, and they have a collection boxes in Tioman Islands and Johor Bahru. So they buy all kinds of personal electronics, of course, sometimes company in bigger scale, such as PCs, laptops, smartphones, etc. for recycling. They also advocate to pay higher prices than public recycling centers due to their unique accelerated supply chain directly from consumer to recovery. So lastly is the UHT beverage packaging from is, is the initiative from Tetra Packs collection. Um, as you may know, Tetra Pak is the major manufacturers for our beverage packaging. So you all know that the beverage packaging comes in multi-layers, which is there's a thin film of plastic in the middle of the paper materials. So some 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 consumers might be confused by the fact that multi-layers materials are not advised supposed to put into the recyclable bins, but apparently these packagings are categorized under recyclables within the paper category, as I have mentioned in the previous slides, under the national hashtag ASEAN waste separation scheme. So to do it correctly, to ease the process later, we need to push the straw back into the empty bags or attach the caps after drinking. And step two, of course, to flatten out the carton before we put it together and send it to the recycling center. The Tetra Pak has drop-off points available in all states in Malaysia except Kelantan and Sarawak. So to look up more on the available collection points, you can look up on their website tetrapacks.com. Or if not, um, it will be easier to just separate it out and for the local collectors to collect at our doorsteps. So with the general waste collection scheme, the general um, waste separations scheme um, for the national collectors and also small scale waste specific collectors on the ground. So where are we moving forward from here? Of course, um, waste prevention, reduction, and separation should be encouraged in a national solid waste management agenda before the materials and energy recovery come in. Landfills should really be the last option where we should put our waste into, because it is a very space consuming, and also it potential it pollutes the environment, um, even into the groundwater. So with all of the laid out scheme available in the country, education and awareness campaign should come in hands with the um, the available ground plan, because without consumer knowing what they should and they can do for the waste generated from their house, the even the perfect plans wouldn't work, because eventually um, the most important stakeholders in the chain are not aware of the available um, scheme out there for them to practice. So moving on, as the small scale waste collection that I have mentioned, um, the government should also incentivize this company and brought them into the national solid waste management agenda as part of the stakeholders, so that they could help to um, they could share uh, they could share a part of the business and also encourage more local startups, and also ease the recycling process, and also broaden the choices for the consumers on ground. Besides, the government should also work with the local government to standardize the scheme of waste separation as source nationwide. Because as you may or may not be noticing earlier, some of the states are not adhere to the hashtag ASEAN um, scheme, waste separation as source scheme. So what are these the other states are doing? Are they also doing their own waste separations as source um, scheme, which is that is available to their residents in the area? So it is important to um, promote equity of chances for the residents on ground to practice, and also for the resources available for them to recycle their waste. So yeah, this is all my sharing today. I hope you learned something. See ya.
Thank you, Lucy. Hi everyone, my name is Jasrina and today I'll be sharing on some organics waste management solutions and chute systems that we can implement easily in Malaysia. Before I start, I would like to touch on the importance of separating and recycling our organics waste or food waste. So as you know, as Malaysians, we do love and appreciate our food so dearly, but that does unfortunately mean though that we generate large amounts of food waste on a daily basis. In just 2018, we found that we generated 16,700 tons of food waste in a day. This is actually enough to feed 2.2 million people 3 times per day. So at the moment, we are landfilling most of our organics, and this means we're generating quite significant amounts of methane gas, which is 21 times more potent than carbon dioxide gas as a greenhouse gas. And that's a huge contributor to climate change and global warming. Landfilling waste products as well does lead to leachate generation. That's a liquid byproduct form. And because a lot of our landfills are not sanitary, which means that they're not equipped with filtration or capture systems to capture these leachate, it could eventually lead to groundwater contamination and affect our water supply as well. So if we're not really separating our organics waste and converting it into compost or natural fertilizers, we're going to have to continue using chemical fertilizers. And that means that we would continue to decrease our soil fertility or deplete our soil from valuable nutrients. Also means that we would need to continue using ingredients or resources to produce these chemical fertilizers. Another effect is eutrophication. So with extensive use of chemical fertilizers, it causes nutrient flow into our water bodies, and that leads to algae blooms. And when this algae decomposes, it actually uses up quite a bit of oxygen from the water bodies or the waterways. And that will mean that there's reduced oxygen availability for other living organisms in the water bodies to thrive. So as you can see, there's quite a few effects of not separating and recycling organics waste. So now we're going to look into ways that we can really utilize our organics waste. So in Thailand, they had previously implemented a 3-bin system, and this was done by the local government. And they provided the waste separation and collection systems for residents to use. And they also campaigned for residents to reduce their waste generation alongside with separating their waste. And of course, they had to look into ways they can increase capacity locally to process the organics product that they were collecting and also the recycling materials. So just between the 5 years that they had conducted this, they noticed that they reduced waste by more than 5 tons per day. And this equated to a cost saving of 1.9 billion baht, which is 250 million ringgit. So the compost that they generated from the organics material, they could either sell it for financial revenue, or they could have distributed it to the residents as an incentive to encourage the residents to continue separating their organics waste. I'd like to share another example from Australia. So in Australia, they have for a long time now had a green waste bin just for garden waste, but now they're looking to allow residents to also dispose of their food waste into the same bin. They were concerned though with contamination levels, but they found that in a lot of the councils or local government areas that they introduced this in, you could achieve contamination levels as low as 1%. They found it to be about 4% in an area with high numbers of non-English speakers. And they found that there's a strong correlation between education and contamination levels. So if they were to spend one Australian dollar on a household to ensure the right education system is in place, they would reduce contamination levels by 1%. So that does show us that you could definitely minimize contamination levels if there is a proper education programs in place for the residents. The next example I'd like to share is on commercial food waste recovery. So this is an example that was implemented in China, and they had a system whereby the government would work with residents or businesses to separate their food waste, and for that food waste to then be collected by waste collection contractors, and they would turn the food waste into compost, which could be used by farmers on agricultural land. So this was quite effective, and they found that they were able to sustain the composting plant because there was quite an established framework between these different parties. So it shows that it just required some coordination between the various parties to ensure sustenance of the system. So now I'd like to go into some examples that we have, some equipment that we have available locally that we could actually utilize. So these are composting machines that are able to decompose food waste into compost using controlled temperatures, agitation, and airflow. So of course, it would need some form of electrical supply to actually function. There are various benefits. One of them would be that it processes large amounts of food waste per day. So you can easily implement this in large commercial developments. Mako, which is a local company, found that they actually reduced their users' greenhouse gas emissions by 66%. And that would be from diverting the food waste from landfills or from reducing transportation as well. Because you no longer need frequent collections, and you wouldn't be transporting the waste over long distances to reach landfills. So the compost product, as I mentioned, can be utilized on site, so directly applied to soil, or can also be used as animal feed. And as I mentioned, you would find that you don't need as frequent waste collections because now you're processing your food waste on site. And so there's not as much odor and vermin issues with your waste that you generate on site. So in terms of costing, you see that it's actually not too significant in comparison to the total operational and maintenance costs that a development would normally incur. So it would be quite reasonable to implement these systems, especially in larger sites, and quite efficient as well. So the next topic I'd like to explore is waste management in high-rise developments. I think many of us are aware with the current issues we have with dumping of waste, whether it's through windows or balconies in these high-rise developments especially. And we understand that that could be due to the existing cultural practices that have been embedded in the society. However, I think it's important to note that there are other reasons as to why this could be happening. So one of it could be the inconvenient access to waste rooms and disposal points within the development. And that could be because there wasn't appropriate planning involved in the development stage or in the planning stage of the development. And of course, probably a lack of education as well, or engagement with the residents to inform them on ways they can appropriately dispose of their waste. And in a lot of developments we have today, especially in high-rise, we still see provision of bins per floor. And that would mean that you'd still need a lot of manual labor to actually transport that bin to a central collection point. So a solution that we could consider is the chute system. In Singapore, they actually have had garbage chutes implemented in a lot of the developments. And they have recently mandated for developments with more than 4 stories to have a dual chute system because they found that residents were actually disposing of recyclables through the garbage chutes as well, because the recycling bins weren't as easily accessible as the garbage chute. And they found that in apartments and buildings with dual chute system would actually recycle up to 3 times more than those without. So these are the companies that we have locally that actually can build or implement these chute system in developments. And as you see, again, the cost in comparison to the building cost or development cost is not too significant. So I think that a strategy we could consider would be to implement policies or mandate chute provisions, such as Singapore has done or other countries have done too. And because there are concerns with fire, we should look into ways we can limit the chute opening sizes so that residents are only able to dispose certain types of material or certain bags of garbage into the chute. And of course, with any new system in place, there would have to be some sort of investment in the education strategy and in proper signages, which I'll go into further later on. And with to prevent fire from occurring, there are also materials today that can be used, as well as nozzles or sprinklers that can be implemented to prevent fire from occurring. So I'd like to close off my part by highlighting the importance of signage and education. As I've mentioned, it is really important with these new systems that we do have the right signage so that we can inform the users of the type of waste they can really dispose in the separate in each equipment. So as you see on the top left, while this one is quite an informative sign, you find that the images are quite small and the wording is quite small as well. So if you imagine that being stuck on a bin, it's not going to be quite clear to the user as to what they should be disposing in the bin. And of course, you see on the bottom left, it's quite general and not too informative, and it doesn't really inform the users to what they should be disposing. You find on the right, though, some clearer images, and of course, they're informative as well in that they inform the users of what type of materials are really accepted in each bin. And the bottom one is also multilingual, which we could see being useful in a country like Malaysia. So I'd just like to close out by sharing the stickers or labeling that they had provided in Australia. So in Australia, when they did implement the organics waste bin, they actually provided residents with these stickers when they found that residents were disposing of waste correctly or incorrectly. So if they were disposing correctly, you'd get a reassurance sticker saying thank you and with how they did it right. But if you didn't, you would get a sticker just informing you on what went wrong and how you could actually improve moving forward. So I think this is a good form of engagement that would actually encourage residents to continue separating their organics and to see the value in doing so as well. I'd now like to pass on to Josephine, who's going to continue the session.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Josephine, and today I am presenting on technologies which could be applied to improve waste segregation and waste collection in Malaysia. The mismanagement of waste can have detrimental effects on our society. Open overflowing bins can be unsightly, lead to bad smells, and attract animals, which can cause the spread of disease. Another aspect which could be improved is the general efficiency of our waste collection system. Garbage collection trucks have been around for centuries, and very little has changed in how the public waste collection system works ever since the 19th century. As you are probably aware, Malaysia has made it compulsory to segregate household waste since 2015. Unfortunately, the level of compliance is still quite low. And secondly, the degree of segregation is currently a very simplistic model with only 2 categories. If this system could be refined further, it would lead to greater efficiency further downstream. And last but not least, high contamination rate of the goods brought into the recycling stream is also of great concern, as these contaminated batches of recyclables are very likely to be sent to the landfills, hence a complete waste of effort. Today I'll be sharing 3 technologies that could be implemented in Malaysia, and the first of which is the Smart Waste Bin. The Smart Waste Bin is an example of a simple technology that can improve efficiency and hygiene in our waste management system. It is widely used in many countries, and there exist several varieties of these smart waste bins, which differ in costs and features. The global market for smart bins is a large one, currently worth over $270 million US, and with significant potential for growth. The first variation I would like to talk about is the Big Belly model. The Big Belly is one of the first smart bins of its kind, which was introduced in around 2003 in the USA and has since been successfully deployed in many developing countries such as Chile and the Czech Republic. What makes it smart is the fact that it is an Internet of Things device, meaning that it can send signals to the cloud when it is near full to inform the waste collector agency. Moreover, it has a fully solar-powered compactor which compresses waste and makes it more space efficient. This increases its capacity up to 5 times, which is especially useful in public spaces such as parks and tourist spots where overflowing bins are a common sight. Both the IoT feature and the compactor make the collection system far more efficient compared to a traditional one, because it reduces the frequency of collection by about 86%. I would also argue that using a solar-powered compactor is particularly suitable for Malaysia, given that we enjoy long periods of sunlight throughout the day. And potentially, if these bins could incorporate solar panels, then any additional solar power could be harvested at the same time. The limitations of this model are that it still requires a collection system, separate bins are needed for recyclables and non-recyclables, and the high risk of contamination of the recyclables. Now, compare that with this smart bin, which is probably the most sophisticated version that currently exists in the market. Like its predecessor, its features include a compressor, an IoT link sensor, but its unique selling point is an AI automated sorting system. This model uses machine vision to identify and sort different types of waste, eliminating human errors and increasing the rate of recycling. The main limitation of this system is the high upfront cost involved. AI technology can be very costly, especially because a high degree of accuracy and speed is needed for this automated sorting system. While the technology is imperfect, it is rapidly advancing, which means that in the coming years, this technology is likely to become cheaper, more effective, and more advanced. There is definitely potential for AI smart bins in Malaysia, and I hope to see some local startups research into these models, improve of them, and in particular, try to reduce the cost so that Malaysia can reap the benefits as well. An alternative technology, which is much cheaper and more accessible at the moment, would be smart sensors. These are IoT devices which can be installed on pre-existing waste bins to grant them capabilities such as the ability to detect the fuel level of the bin and to transmit IoT signals to the services. IoT waste bins and smart sensors are already in use in Malaysia, but in my view, this market still has huge potential that can be exploited by local firms, as the usage of these IoT smart bins could be expanded both in the public and private sector. The second technology I'm going to talk about is the pneumatic waste conveyance system, otherwise known as PWCS. How the system works is that the pipes use air suction to send household waste to bins at the bottom of blocks. When these are full, then sensors will instruct valves to open and send the trash through an enclosed underground pipe network to a centralized bin center. As for recyclables, there are communal disposal inlets also linked to the system, which are located outdoors, as shown in this picture. The benefit is that it completely removes the need for a house-to-house collection system, so it's more efficient. It is also more hygienic and produces less odors, as kitchen waste can be disposed of immediately. In recent years, this technology has been implemented by our neighbor Singapore to a high degree of success. A pilot project first involved installing the PWCS on 38 residential blocks, but by 2018, the government required all new residential projects to incorporate a PWCS system, which is a testimony to how successful it was. The limitations of this system are that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, because bulky waste items such as pillows and bamboo sticks should not be disposed of through this system and could potentially choke and damage the pipes. While the PWCS system almost eliminates the occurrence of bad smells, it can still lead to odors if a blockage occurs. This means the success of the system is also dependent on the responsible behavior of its users. More obviously, a significant drawback of this system is the high upfront cost involved with installing the infrastructure needed. This means it's not cost-effective for low-density areas, and more importantly, such a large-scale investment is beyond Malaysia's capabilities, likely for the near future. And earlier, I mentioned that responsible behavior on the part of users is always needed to ensure the effectiveness of all these waste technologies. But it comes to mind that we may need some sort of tracking and enforcement system to ensure this good behavior on their part. So radio frequency identification, RFIDs, may be our answer. This time looking at China as an example, Shanghai was the first to have implemented these communal smart bins in 2019. As you can see in this picture, the bin on the left is for food waste with a built-in composter, while the one on the right is for recyclables. This pilot system is somewhat simplistic with only 2 categories, but today in Beijing, a similar system is implemented with 7 separate waste categories. The RFID comes in at the initial stage. when the user selects the type of waste they want to dispose of and scans their RFID keycard. This will allow the system to track the quantity of recyclables that a person segregates correctly, and later rewards them with points that can be used to redeem food and household products. Moreover, QR-coded garbage bags are scanned by the smart bin before they accept the bags. Theoretically, this will also allow the government to track down and penalize irresponsible users, but arguably, the mere existence of this tracking system is sufficient to encourage self-policing and lead to better compliance. In some parts of Malaysia, a similar system is implemented where residents bring their recyclables to a center and workers will weigh them manually. By implementing such an automated RFID system, it will make our present system far more efficient because it can operate at 24 hours and can be deployed in more areas and require less manpower. Here is another case study on RFID waste tracking, this time from Korea. In recent years, their government has implemented a pay-as-you-throw system to curb food waste in society. How it works is that users put food waste into biodegradable bags, which are weighed by the communal bins, and then users are charged according to the weight of the food waste produced, and they are tracked using the RFID tags. This food waste will be collectively composted in the communal bins and turned into useful byproducts. This policy has been successful in lowering the overall weight of food waste. But at the same time, the density of the food waste has increased, which means that it could be counterproductive. The upside is that thanks to this system, 90% of food waste in Korea is used as biogas and compost nowadays. And Korea now produces more fertilizer than it can utilize. But the main issue of this system is that it can cause a rise in illegal waste disposal. For example, residents may just dispose of their waste next to the bin or at an illegal dumping ground in order to evade the waste disposal cost. Although Malaysia does have a huge food waste problem like Korea, the risk of illegal waste disposal is significantly higher in our country. Hence, I think the former model used by China to reward good behavior is more suitable for Malaysia to implement. Just several points to summarize my part. Solar smart bins have huge potential in Malaysia, and AI smart bins, while expensive, could reduce contamination rate. Although PWCS are very efficient, costs are extremely high, hence the huge system described by Jasrina might be more preferable. And lastly, composting machines are a good solution to reduce food waste, but while RFID tags can be used to reward good behavior and ensure compliance. With that, thank you for your attention, and I'll pass the time on to Robiato.
Thanks, Josephine. Next, I will share about biomass utilization technology focusing on productions of biodiesel from waste cooking oil. First and foremost, let's see the productions of waste cooking oil from a few countries. According to a statistic published by Head of Research and Development in Netherlands, found that around 700,000 to 1 million tons of waste cooking oil are produced in European Union. For Asian countries like China, Malaysia, and Indonesia, around 40,000 tons of waste cooking oil are produced per year. Tons of waste cooking oil are produced every day, but if this waste handled in improper management, it will affect the environment and also human. For human side, a research found that waste from cooking oil is believed to cause cancer due to the toxic content produced when the oil is oxidized from the fried food. Furthermore, if waste cooking oil end up in water system, it will be affecting aquatic life. In water, oil layer the surface of water. It will be prevent the dissolution of oxygen and causing a mass extinction of marine biota. Besides, discharge of waste cooking oil will lead to the clogging of sewer pipes and drain causing flooding. With the help of technology, waste cooking oil become a byproduct and a material that we can use again. When waste cooking oil is undergo a chemical reaction, called transesterification process, it will be converting to biodiesel. So the process to convert waste cooking oil to biodiesel need the alkali catalyst method or the catalytic cracking and hydrogenation method in order to convert waste cooking oil to biodiesel. So here are a few steps how to make biodiesel from cooking oil. Where first, waste cooking oil was preheated in 65 to 75 degrees Celsius, and it will be mixed with methanol, example of alcohol, and in the presence of catalyst. And for example of catalyst is sodium methyl. The mixture will be rested for around 1 until 2 hours until the fatty acid methyl ester, film and glycerol naturally separated. Film is washed down in 65 to 75 degrees Celsius in pH of 4 until 6 to remove unwanted compound that may compromise its quality. Next, to improve the quality of biodiesel, water is removed by heating at 130 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. And lastly, the biodiesel will undergo a mechanical filtration process to remove the particles and molecule of impurity to generate final products of biodiesel. So here is the biodiesel cycle. The use of pure biodiesel can be designated as B100, which is represent 100% biodiesel, or biodiesel also can be blended with fuel diesel. If blended with fuel diesel, it will be designated as BXX, where XX represents the percentage of biodiesel in the blend. The most common ratio is B20, which represents a 20% biodiesel and 80% diesel are used in vehicles. Waste cooking oil has been practiced for decades in developed countries and regions such as in Japan. So here are the facts about biodiesel production in Japan. So in Kyoto specifically, there has been collected waste cooking oil from households since 1998, where they start produce biodiesel fuel since 2004. So here in the right side of the slide, it is a biodiesel plant in Kyoto, where it is the largest facility in Japan that can produce capacity 5 kiloliters per day of biodiesel from waste cooking oil. In Japan, around 1.5 million liters of biodiesel fuel are used annually, where it will contribute to a reduction of carbon dioxide emissions about 4,000 tons per year. So on the below right side, we can see this is a collecting waste cooking oil from household in Kyoto, where the citizen will go to a certain point to drop their waste cooking oil. In Kyoto City, around 220 garbage trucks were supplied with B100 from November 1997. And the biodiesel also be used in city buses, which is around 95 buses, where they will be supplied with B20, and it was started to use biodiesel B20 for buses since April 2000. Moving on to the next country that also use biodiesel as their alternative fuel, in Taiwan, recycled status of waste cooking oil officially designated as one of the mandatory recyclable waste since 2015. Collected amount of waste cooking oil from residential and commercial sector in Taiwan significantly increased from 1,599 tons in 2015 to 12,591 tons waste cooking oil are collected, resulting from the mandatory recyclable waste of cooking oil in 2015. In the first half of 2019, Taiwan produced 26,000 tons of waste cooking oil into biodiesel, and from this amount, 10,000 tons were exported predominantly to South Korea, while 90,000 tons were used locally blended with petroleum diesel. In Malaysia, there are a few companies that venture in the productions of biodiesel from waste cooking oil such as Chris Biofuels Sdn Bhd, Agricot Green Sdn Bhd and Fat Hope Energy. But there are a few problems that are facing by Malaysia in productions of biodiesel from waste cooking oil. First, transport system for collecting waste cooking oil is really challenging in terms of managing this type of waste. As we know that waste cooking oil is in liquid form where needs careful management in order to avoid it end up in the water system that will cause damage to the environment. To overcome this problem, I think the citizen needs to play important role to keep the waste cooking oil in suitable bottle to make it easier for the collector to collect the waste cooking oil. So, in Kyoto, they have collaboration between municipal waste management and citizens where they will gather the waste cooking oil in a collecting system where this collecting system have a few points for the citizen to drop their waste cooking oil. So in Kyoto City, they have 2,000 points that the citizen can drop their waste cooking oil. So maybe Malaysia can implement the same system as in Kyoto, Japan. So the second problem is a research found that around 500 tons of waste cooking oil annually discharged to the environment where it will affect the environment and result to an increase in water treatment costs. So to overcome the issue, I think government can enact a law like in Taiwan, where in Taiwan they choose to make sure that their citizens recycle waste cooking oil because it is a mandatory recycle as stated in their law. So maybe we can also implement law to make sure that waste of cooking oil also become one of the waste recyclable in Malaysia. Moving on to the advantage of the biodiesel. For advantage for environment is first, biodiesel is a renewable resources. It also biodegradable because pure biodiesel B100 degrades faster than petroleum diesel. And lastly, for environmental benefits, it also can reduce the gas emissions by over 80% on a life cycle basis. For the net benefits for the economy, biodiesel can provide local economy with a new market for their agriculture product. And biodiesel also incorporated in the energy mix will encourage new business opportunity, great investment, employment, and provide new energy alternative. There is no doubt that biodiesel also has this advantage, especially in countries that experience cool weather, where biodiesel can form crystal in cool weather, which can lead to filter flagging. Besides, biodiesel acts like a mild solvent and has a cleansing effect. It cleans out the sediment foam over time in equipment and storage fuel tanks, which can cause occasional filter plugging, especially in early stage of switching from petroleum diesel to biodiesel blend. So I really hope that we can manage waste cooking oil properly in order to avoid pollutions resulting from improper management of waste cooking oil. By increasing the productions of biodiesel in Malaysia, it's really great step to reducing the greenhouse emissions in Malaysia so that we can achieve 45% carbon dioxide emission reduction target by 2030. So that's all for my part. I pass the floor to Jazrin to conclude our session. Thank you.
Thank you, Robiato. Managing waste properly is essential for building sustainable and livable cities. But it remains a challenge for many developing countries and cities. In this session, we have learned from our speakers a few waste management technologies that have been implemented in other Asian countries. In Malaysia, there is high potential for advancement in waste management. While positive incentives should be provided to cultivate good habits in waste management, some form of enforcement is also needed to deter irresponsible behaviors. From Jasrina, we learned that we should be moving towards diverting organic waste from landfills, which, as she shared, would not only reduce our methane emissions, but also be recycled into valuable compost. She also shared about the significance of considering an alternative solution to manage waste in high-rise developments. Our next speaker, Josephine, highlighted to us that Malaysia should explore and incorporate technologies such as Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, solar power, and RFID, which will improve hygiene, efficiency, and recycling rate in our waste management system. Robiato presented about how Malaysians should have awareness not only of recycling solid waste, but also liquid waste, because liquid waste also brings harm to the environment. Biodiesel fuel can help Malaysia target to reduce gas emission by 45% because it releases less carbon diesel than conventional fuel. By following other countries that actively recycle waste, cooking oil like Japan and Taiwan, maybe we can collaborate together with these countries to implement their technology of production biodiesel from waste cooking oil. We hope some of these initiatives could gain traction in Malaysia and stir inspiration amongst our communities for better waste management habits. Now, I will open the floor to Q&A from the audience. Hi everyone. Thank you, Lucy, Jasrina, Josephine, and Robiato for your presentations. I've personally learned a lot about best practices and the latest innovations in waste collection, waste segregation, and organic food waste recovery. All solutions are viable depending on the situation. Some may perform better than others in different circumstances. To our fellow audience, unlike the previous IGEM Climate Solutions pitching series you may have attended, this session delivery is catered more as an information session. Hence, there will not be any polling of preferred solutions. Our esteemed panelists this morning are representatives from the Malaysian Youth Delegation. MYD is a Malaysian civil society organization that plays a two-part role of representing Malaysia's local youth climate movement and raising awareness of climate policies among Malaysians. Notwithstanding the dedication in making international and domestic climate policies accessible to Malaysians, the MYD youth are not experts in the field and are sharing the knowledge gained via their respective research and work. With that expectation in mind, let's proceed to the Q&A. So the first question that we have is directed towards Lucy. Lucy, can you share about about your electronic waste perhaps consumption? Have you purchased spoiled phones or router, and how can audience keep in touch with you after this talk?
Hi, thank you for the question. However, I would like to clarify that MYD, we are not doing this e-waste collection service, as I'm just collecting it as one of the company available on market, and is from ERTH, I would say. It is an e-waste collection company that I have personally approached and supported in previous years, and they are pretty reachable on Facebook for collections if the items come in a large amount. So to answer the question, yes, they collect mobile, PC, and also a broad range of electronic waste for recycling. You can also reach out to us to MYD's email if you guys have more inquiries on e-waste that I can help out perhaps. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucy. Our next question is directed towards Josephine. So how do you ensure that different wastes are not deposited into the smart bins? Knowing Malaysians, even rubbish are sometimes thrown in recycle bins.
Thank you, Valerie. That's a great question, and thank you to the audience for asking it. And I'm fully aware of this issue, and in order to address it, I suggest that we implement a tracking and enforcement system. This would consists of 3 or 4 components. So the first one is to use an RFID card or tag so that the user can access the bin and the bin will be able to recognize different users. And the second part is to use QR coded bags or also RFID tag bags. And this will link the person with the waste deposited so that later downstream they can find out if any like errors were made in disposal of like different types of waste. And the third one is slightly more controversial. It's just an idea I want to put out there that in China, the government actually pre-installed cameras on the communal smart bins. So this means the bins can also use face recognition to ensure that the residents only deposit the rubbish at their own residential bins, and also to ensure that they can kind of enforce and penalize anyone who like throws the waste into the wrong bin, for example. But this is perhaps unnecessary if the RFID tags and QR coded bags can be implemented fully. I think the facial recognition part is probably unnecessary. And the fourth part, the last part, is that we need to incentivize the use of these communal bins in order to ensure no illegal dumping outside of those bins. So we need like a tracking and reward system, for example, by weighing the recyclables deposited and then providing incentives such as claiming food vouchers later on. Yeah.
Can I add to that, Valerie?
Of course, go ahead, Jasrina.
Thanks. So yeah, I think like this is a good space to kind of emphasize again my slide on signage and education as well. So I think this is where it's really important to have like really good and informative signage, and that's also accurate, of course. You shouldn't just have vague images with, diagrams showing like plastics and stuff, but it might not be so clear what sort of material is accepted in your recycling stream, and that can confuse people because your signage is the first point of communication someone has with the bin. Like that's your first interaction with the bin. So you'd have to ensure that there's appropriate signage if investing in RFID or QR code is not an option, which sometimes may be the case. So and of course, educating through any sort of means, like it will have to slowly become a norm that we start communicating or conversing about waste management in the general public, that there might need to be advertisements or, like signages out there in the public that are communicating why it's important to recycle, and also slowly educating people on what materials can be recycled, because we do want to really keep our materials in the system rather than just putting it into landfill. Yeah.
Certainly. Is there any further comments that other panelists would like to contribute before we move on to the next question? All right, that's good. So our next question: to overcome improper waste management of cooking oil in Malaysia, do you think that by enacting a law on recycling waste cooking oil can solve this problem? Over to you, Roberto.
Yeah. Thank you, Valerie, for the question. I think when we have a mandatory law on recycle of waste cooking oil, it will make people more aware of the fact that not only solid waste are need to recycle, but also we need to focus on waste from liquid. So when we have this law, people will think that, we need to ensure that we also have a proper step to make sure that waste cooking oil not end up in water system. So we know that the purpose of law is to govern the conduct of people behavior, and when they are failed to abide by the law, they will subjected to sanction. So I think when we have law and people will get punished for against the law, so people will make it more seriously, because maybe when you dump the waste in water system, you need to pay for amount of money, will make people that, I need to pay for some money, so I need to make sure that I put this waste of cooking oil in a good place to like facilities that will convert the waste cooking oil to biodiesel, for example, like I present. So I think we also know that everyone are subjected to law, and there will no one are left behind. So maybe like we know that like a multinational company that venture in F&B business, where they actually produce waste of cooking oil a huge number per day. So when we have this law, maybe we can also put a clause where for a company, they need to achieve some amount of waste cooking oil to recycle by the end of the year. And if they fail to do so, they will subjected to kind of fine like happened in Taiwan. Because I think that law is really can govern people behavior and be more alert on this matter. So I think if we can enact a law regarding maybe not only recycle or waste cooking oil, also other ways, it actually help our environment and ourselves. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for your suggestion, Noviato. And our next question, I would open to all the panelists. So what stage of all these technologies that you have pitched so far in this series? Could you enlighten the audience about the stage of the technologies?
Yeah, I can start. So with the, I guess I'll start with the composting machines that I shared. So Mako, as I mentioned, MAEKO, I think they stand for Menteri Alam Eco. They are a local company and they actually have implemented their composting machine in quite a number of developments, like commercial developments, shopping centers, I think even a residential area they've done. So it's actually already up and running in developments here. It's just about really, I think, making it a bit more standardized, especially amongst large commercial developments. And the chute systems, companies like Stream Environment has also implemented it in, I think, more than 30 developments from my conversation with them. And although that has been single chute systems, which means it's just one garbage chute, which is not really encouraging separation of waste at source, and it's not really encouraging recycling materials as well. So yeah, we still have to move towards that separation at source and recycling at source, in my opinion. But yeah, it's the solutions that I shared are already gets implemented in Malaysia and trialed out. So you can definitely reach out to them and talk to them about what has worked well and what hasn't. Yeah.
Perhaps I'll go next. So this of all the solutions I've shared, they are mostly, they're all have been implemented in other countries. Some of the solutions, for example, the PWCS, the company NVAX actually also operates within Malaysia, but it's not a Malaysian company. And in terms of the smart bins that someone has asked about, well, I'm not too sure, but I think that only the field level sensors are being produced within Malaysia, and there's actually quite a lot of companies producing that within Malaysia. So you can just do a search online. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, for ways of cooking oil, the technology that currently used, as far as I know, is a chemical process transcription process, where this technology, like I mentioned in the presentation, where they will mix the waste of cooking oil, alcohol, and catalyst. And for now, I think the technology that they are still figure out what are the suitable mix, which is alcohol and catalyst in waste of cooking oil. What are the suitable that can use that can reduce the gas emission when they use wasting oil. So like maybe currently they also use hydrogen in that, as far as I'm aware. So they still figure out what kind of mix will actually result the most lower gas emissions in the environment.
Yeah, and I also would like to add on, in my presentation, it's more like a scheme available rather than technology. So I would say for the national plan of waste separation at source, I mean the general scheme is there. It's just that stern enforcement from authorities is of course needed to get the locals to adhere to the scheme, and also for the small companies that I mentioned, they are all like a startup with a really good initiative, and of course need support both from the governments and also community to help them to scale up their services. And also because as we know, most of these are available in cities area, so to make it more equity in the others area in the country, so we really need support from the community and also government to bring it to the others area in the country. Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone. We hear it loud and clear from the panelists that we would require everyone's support in terms of adopting these technologies for better waste management. Moving on to our next question. How do the local municipality can adopt new waste collection method to avoid the leakage, spillage around the housing area?
Can I go first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Roberto.
Okay, actually in Malaysia, as far as I aware, there's not many collecting system for waste of cooking oil. So I think maybe in Malaysia, we can implement what in Kyoto, Japan has already did, where they actually have a collecting point where for a residential area, they have like 5 collecting points so that it make it easier for the residential people to drop the waste cooking oil, and it also make it easier for the companies to collect the waste of cooking oil. So I think maybe in the future Malaysia can also do the same thing in order for people to aware that, oh, we need to actually recycle the waste of cooking oil, because I'm really sure that not all people actually know that we need to recycle waste of cooking oil. So maybe the collecting point for a collecting point located for a residential area actually help to curb this problem, to make sure that we can manage it properly.
So I'll take the silence as no further comments from other panelists. In that case, let's move on to our next question. So awareness for recycling program is still very low. So how do we change people to start recycling from their own house? Any suggestions from the panelists?
Yeah, I can start first. I think at the moment, because we don't really have a separate recycling bin, although like was mentioned in our presentation, there has been an act enacted to encourage residents to separate their waste, but because residents do not have like a separate recycling bin physically there, it's not making it any easier for residents to recycle at home. So I think at the moment, the avenues available include like deposit points where you can go and drop off your recyclables. So I think the resources that people would have to look into are all available online, that have to look up available recycling centers. So I think the easy solution, like to actually inform residents of all these drop-off points currently available, if we are not going to provide recycling bins so soon, would be like the local councils, like our MPSJ, MPPJ could, send out some just simple pamphlets, just informing residents where they could dispose e-waste, for example, where they could dispose their plastic containers, nearby locations close to that residential area where they could really go to dispose of these items. Recycle these items. So I think that would be a great start to encourage residents and actually start that conversation around recycling as well. Yeah, but of course, having recycling bins at home would be ideal. And when we do get to the point where we are providing residents with recycling bins at home, that's when we have to look into appropriate signage as well. And I can't stress education enough because, yeah, it's really important to communicate. Otherwise, you're going to find rubbish in your recycling bin, no doubt. That's going to happen because it's only human nature to make those errors. So yes, we have to make it clear that, clothing, for example, can't go in recycling bins. Like, yeah, in Australia, they find a lot of clothing in their recycling bin. And you can't really blame people as well. I think a general person might think that clothes are recyclable. Yeah.
Just to add on to that, I think there are two aspects. Adding on to what Jashrina mentioned about having like communal recycling points, I think that we need to incentivize that because there is a certain inconvenience in like bringing those recyclables to the point, and for like the general public who may not be extremely aware about the importance of sustainability, they may not find it very convenient to do so unless we actually incentivize that, for example, by providing food vouchers, rewarding good behavior. Another aspect is I found that the government, although they have encouraged people to segregate recyclables, although there's no like separate recycling bin in our house, I think it would be helpful if there was some form of enforcement, such as like even like sending a notice to people who did not segregate recyclables for like a long period of time, reminding people of the importance of doing that. I think that's really important. Otherwise, people might not even be aware, or they may just forget that recycling is even a thing in Malaysia now.
I also want to add, I think to change people so that they can start to recycle from their own house, maybe we can start it with a small step, like we promote it in social media. Maybe it's like a kind of simple thing to do, but it actually encourage people where maybe they read the post and they know how to segregate their waste. So it may they think, oh, we need to recycle this thing although just by reading the social media post, but it actually helped for me lah, I think, because people nowadays like always in social media, always scroll to know new facts, new knowledge. So it's all about all people all people need to play important role to promote the recycle waste in Malaysia.
Yeah, to echo the previous speakers, so given the mentality and the level of awareness of the citizens in Malaysia on waste separation, I definitely see the top-down approach from local authorities are really important. Given the case study in our country, like the single-use straws and also plastic, that is already implemented in our country, because we could see all these issues are considered like a global issue rather than our country, because the pollution of these plastics really come in a global scale, but in the waste management is really in our um, it's just the local scale issue that we should really tackle on. So if that would make sense in the global issue, I would say the top-down approach from government is really needed on in direct messaging towards the citizens on implementing waste separation at source. Yeah, and also on Rapatu's issues on way promoting through social media, I would say rather than the citizen, like the community, encouraging each other on doing waste separation, because when I was doing research for this presentation, I also found that there are really plenty of companies and also recycling services available out there, and these resources often only locked within the waste management field. So in this digital era, to break through the bubbles is really important for this for this recycling company also to like put their services out there to let the the users and the consumers know about the choices that are available. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucy. Well, looks like there's a lot more to go. So let's move on to the next question, question 7. This is directed to Josephine. In your presentation, you mentioned that disruptive AI technologies are used in the waste sector of other countries. How will this affect waste sector employment in Malaysia?
Thank you for your question. I think that in terms of any disruptive technology, it will cause some jobs to be replaced, but new jobs will also be created. So some examples of jobs that may be lost are like informal waste collectors. But these jobs the workers will be exposed to unsanitary conditions, and they are generally low paid jobs. Whereas those jobs that will be created are more skilled labor opportunities, like more technicians in terms of the smart waste bin, and more software engineers will be needed. So, and in terms of less skilled jobs, perhaps waste collectors and truck drivers at the municipal level will still be needed. So I think it's a positive development in terms of moving towards better working conditions and efficiency in our waste management sector, leading to higher quality jobs overall.
And the following questions is actually, I think, could be a connected question as well. Which of the presented waste management technologies so far are most cost effective?
Okay. So in terms of cost effectiveness, I think the PWCS is very efficient. However, it's also really expensive, and it's only suitable for like high density areas, for example, Kuala Lumpur. So perhaps it's not the most cost effective. As for self-sorting bins, is efficient to increase the recycling rate, but the cost involved to install something like the bin E I mentioned is also really high. So I think the best solution would be as what we were discussing earlier, to install like a communal waste collection center where it could be operated by RFID bins or it could be operated by humans. And if we were to use RFID bins, then we can just leverage the tracking capabilities of these bins to get better compliance and increase the recycling rate.
Thank you, Josephine. Now, there will be I'll open this next question to everyone. What do you think about illegal waste dumping on such as bulk waste on the roadside, especially in rural areas? How to overcome this problem?
And give it a go. So I think that's a problem, not just faced in Malaysia, but lots of places around the world. And like Josephine says, sometimes when you implement like smart bins and so on, and when you have that weighing system in place, that could lead to more illegal dumping because people wouldn't want to pay to dispose their rubbish. But yeah, in terms of the illegal dumping that we face here, I think having a form of structured system could help, like that, councils, local councils or MPSJ and MPPJ, they would arrange for certain collections throughout the year. So you give residents like a time and a place, or it would be easier to be collected right outside their house, of course. So a truck would come by and collect their rubbish right outside their house. So there should be like a fixed date and time for this collection to occur, which like councils should arrange with residents. And I'm sure, I feel like some sort of surveillance would also be necessary. So if there is found to be illegal waste, that would have to be some people that would have to be deemed responsible for it. And that, of course, like repercussions or actions would have to be taken against them in some way, like a fine of some sort. Otherwise, I think people would continue just doing that really because it's an easy way out to just dump your waste anywhere and not have to worry about it after that. So, and of course, education comes into place again, telling people why you shouldn't illegally dump your waste and what that really causes in the long term. Yeah.
To add to that, I think from my side, there are two aspects I would like to talk about. The first one is about the value of the waste, because when waste is not properly segregated, it becomes rubbish, and people tend to treat it as such, like something that's just inconvenient and like a liability to them. Whereas what we should be moving towards as a society is like zero waste, right? So the waste becomes like an asset that we need to treasure and keep within our system as something useful. So if we see it that way and we make people see it that way by rewarding them with positive incentives such as the food vouchers I mentioned, then that way people will start to see waste hopefully in a better light and to be more aware of it and not like simply dump it on the roadside in this example. And the second aspect is in terms of convenience, because if we make the for example, the smart waste bins I talked about, if we emphasize too much on the negative enforcement and it becomes like more of an inconvenience and a difficulty, financial extra burden for people, then it will become like even less convenient and cause more illegal dumping to occur. Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely like agree with Josephine, making it convenient for people is really prime and important because people don't see value in waste, unfortunately, today, but hopefully that will change with time. And like Josephine says, we should really see waste as a resource, and it shouldn't really even be called waste, really, because there's a lot of energy and resources put into developing these products, into developing a piece of paper, for example. There's a lot of resources, natural resources that are used in developing it. And so we have to try to communicate in some way, but I think it would take time before that really registers in the world. So yeah, I think making it easy for people to dispose rubbish, to recycle their waste is really important.
Well said, Jasrina. Thank you. So our next question is slightly different from the topics we have discussed so far. It's more on medical waste. How can we effectively deal with the COVID-19 medical waste that can reduce the risk of waste workers?
I think this is a really great question. Yeah, thanks for the question. I feel an easy way to do it would be at source, like having just separate bins solely to dispose of any medical or sanitary waste. So I feel that would be an easy way to do it. So having specific bin, just in the wards or just around the hospital general areas to dispose of these items. Yeah, and of course labeling that bin as well to say COVID relevant waste or medical waste. Yeah.
On that note, relating to medical waste, as far as I know, PWCS is actually quite a useful system in terms of medical waste if it were to be implemented in hospitals, or if there's like insufficient budget for that, even like a chute system as mentioned, as explained by Jasrina earlier, because this will reduce the human handling of the waste and hence reduce the risk of infection. Yeah.
Thank you,
I
Josephine.
think,
Thank you, Jasmine. Oh, go
sorry,
ahead,
I was just
Jasmine.
going to say, I think PPE is still really important when you're dealing with any sort of waste, because there's going to be pathogens and hazardous items.
True. Thank you. So in the interest of time, we will be taking one last question. In our society, we are so used to having the voice of government to tell us what to do. What community-based actions and groups have you experienced having long-lasting behavioral changes in communities like ours? I'll open this question to everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, please, Lucy.
Yeah, I really want to give a shout out to Zero Waste Malaysia. That is one of the biggest, I would say, community-based movement happening in Malaysia right now. They have a Facebook group, and it's like everyone in the country can join and also discuss about alternatives available, particularly in their area, which they could sort out the waste together, and also how we can modify our behavior towards waste in a group. So a lot of conversation going on in the group, and also industrial expert also in the group, which are giving out a lot of advice. So it really broadens the members' ideas on how they can manage their waste rather than just put all of it into the bins. So I would say that one of a quite successful movement going on, and really want encourage everyone's listening to the webinars. I mean to the session to join as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel there are definitely a lot of groups and NGOs as well. I feel like the NGOs that actually are out there and engaging with the public, like Econites is one that I can think on top of my head. They have activities, like river cleanups and so on, and another NGO, I just can't get the name now, but yeah, there are NGOs out there that are doing these cleanups or activities where they engage with the public. I feel those are really impactful because people are out there and actually seeing the effects of what we're doing today, of polluting and disposing of waste irresponsibly. So I feel, when you have that first-hand engagement is when it really makes an impact on a person. So I feel that there are definitely groups doing activities today on the ground. It's just about really looking out and finding those groups that do it so that you can participate as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Jasrina. So everyone, I want to let you know that MYD will be organizing the Malaysian Local Conference of Youth in late November and early December to make youth voices heard and connect youth with each other and with experts. Malaysian Alcoy 2020 will take place on 3 consecutive weekends starting 28th of November up until 13 December. And this year, the Malaysian Alcoy will expand its focus beyond policy and national solutions and includes exciting topics at the regional Southeast Asia levels such as energy transition, youth climate leadership, and nature-based solutions. Register your interest with us now and make sure you get the news to sign up. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you to our fellow panelists for their sharings and to the IGEM for organizing this event. Our feedback form will be sent out. Please take some time to let us know how we can improve our session further. Thank you for allowing me to be your moderator. This is Ai Hui signing off.
Thank you.